So welcome to our social system mapping on-ramp session for June 14th, 2021. Your hosts today are Kara, our producer, and me, Christine Capper, co-founder of sumApp and Greater Than the Sum. And for those of you who are new to us, we have 4 sessions a month for our community practice. The first one is a sense-making session where we use human systems dynamics or other models and methods for seeing complexity, and we apply those to a social system map, which we will be doing next July the 5th. The second Monday is the on-ramp session, which is an intro level session for people who've never seen a social system map, or for people who are just really love to see what other people in the community are working on. Today, we're having Lisa Negstad share the human systems dynamics map. The third Monday, we usually have a deep dive conversation where we dig deeper into something related to social system mapping. And this month's on the 21st, we're going to talk about a concept that we've just really is relatively new around here. About the network horizon and how social system mapping helps us see beyond our own personal ego networks. And then on the 4th Monday, we always have a tech talk, and this upcoming one will just be open technical Q&As. We often use that session for introducing new features or introducing things that we think people should know about and don't know about, but this one will just be an open conversation. So just if you've got questions, feel free to bring them. We have a whole lot of resources for learning, both self-driven, Slack community, and then online, showing up, etc. So Kara's going to be putting a number of links to various resources in the chat right now. If you want to grab them now, feel free to, but she will also send a follow-up email within the next 2 days, which will include all the links as well. So if you don't want to grab them right now, that's not a big deal. Also in those, we have a whole library now of sessions of these kinds of all the different topics that we have monthly. So that's another really good resource for learning. And then lastly, I have office hours. We didn't change it in this slide, but it's 4 to 4:30, not 5 to 5:30 Central Time in the US, where I'm just online and you can jump on and chat with me if you have questions or need a thought partner, whatever. You can get the link to that either from our website or in our Slack. So for today's agenda, we're going to do chat intros in just a second. Then Lisa's going to go to share her map. Then she'll leave some time after she shares the map for us to have questions and answers. And for those of you who want to stick around, if you have one of our favorite things is to just have a flexible, informal half hour after the formal session, where you can just ask whatever questions you want. So I'll stick around for that. Lisa can't stick around for that, so she's going to jump off, but I'll still be here if you want to. So that's our agenda, and let's do a chat. So what I'd like to have you put in the chat right now is your just your name, your pronoun, and your location. So we can. And I'm going to stop sharing. Hey, Joe, just want to give you an opportunity to do a sound check if you want. If you want to unmute. Ooh. Hi. Hey,
Hi.
Alex. Hi. Alex, sound check. Is your mic working today?
Sound check.
Sound check.
Hello.
Hi. So for those of you, I just wanted to also, while we're doing introductions, Alex is the developer who works with us on sumApp. So he's the guy who makes our ideas come to life and solves the problems and fixes the bugs when you have them. So I've been trying to make opportunities for Alex to get a little more connected to the community and see why it is we do this sumApp thing we do. So invited him to today's session. Okay.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi. Alex, do you want to tell them where you are geographically?
Hi. So I'm in Bucharest, Romania, Europe, and it's currently 6 in the evening, or I suppose for you guys it's PM.
Yeah, PM. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so for our next chat, let's just have you, so we can get to know you a little bit about your work. What's one primary network that you are either part of or that you're working with? Some of you I know are deep network weavers embedded in networks, part of networks, and others are also deep network weavers, but consultants who are working with networks that hire them. So those are two different roles we have, but let's go ahead and see who's doing what. Thank you. I think we're just a sense of the global reach and all the different kinds of topics that people are working on. So thank you. Okay. And then just briefly, what brings you here today? What questions do you have, or what curiosity is driving you? It's Monday, more to learn. Yeah, Jasmine, you must have talked to Sarah or somebody at RAMP.
Yeah, Melissa, and then
Oh, Melissa.
Sarah.
Nice, good. Yeah, we've worked with, we made their map and have loved them. Okay, I'm going to show you one more. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. This is great. Thank you. And I just want, so for those of you who are new to social system mapping, I want to sort of give you a really high level just idea of how the tools fit together, because I find this to be a place that can be a little confusing for people sometimes. So you may be familiar with the Kumu platform. Kumu is a graph data visualization platform that you can use for system mapping, for social network analysis mapping, for mind mapping, for any kind of numbers. When you have dots and lines connecting the dots, that's a graph. That's called a graph. And Kumu is one of the best online graph visualization tools. It's wonderfully interactive and wonderfully customizable. And so Kumu is, when you're looking at a social system map, Kumu is the platform that you're looking at the map in. That's the platform that's taking data and visualizing it. Kumu can get data from anywhere, but what it doesn't do is gather the data that you, in an easy, you have to get your data from somewhere. So that's where sumApp comes in. sumApp is a specifically designed, it's kind of like a super special survey designed for social networks, for actually not just social networks the way Twitter is for social networks, but for intentional change networks that have goals and purposes and gatherings and are trying to develop stronger relationships throughout the network, intentionally and strategically. So sumApp is designed for those kinds of networks to gather data about the network and to structure data in a way that it fits just perfectly with Kumu. So there's no cleaning the data or fussing with the data or worrying about any, you don't have to really worry about, is the data structured right for Kumu, because it always is. If you use sumApp with your network, your data just works. So those are the two separate platforms, but we designed sumApp to work perfectly with Kumu so that you can get large amounts of data from a large network in a way that is easy, is really user friendly for the people in your network, that they can continually update it over time. So it's not a one-shot thing like a social network analysis map is. And so that, and it enables you to iterate your understanding of the kind of data that you need. So let's say you start with your questions framed one way and you discover that just doesn't work. People don't like that wording, or it's not meaning what it needs to mean. You can change that, and sumApp will retroactively fix, change all the previous instances of the data, or you can add new questions, you can add new options. So sumApp is just designed to be flexible and iterative and to change with your understanding of what you need. So sumApp gathers the data. We have a live link to put it into Kumu. So you don't have to download, upload, fuss. It's just, the data is kept live from sumApp to Kumu. And then someone, depending on if you hire someone to do this for you, if you do it yourself, this is what my business partner and husband and I do, and other people in this call can do also, we'll take that data and design Kumu around it, specifically to your context for what you need. And then, so data gets gathered in sumApp, data gets visualized in Kumu, and then we take a link from Kumu and feed it back into sumApp so that your network members, when they're filling out their survey, they can just access the map right away from sumApp. So they don't have to go here and input their data and then go over here to see the map. No, they can just, your users will just go, or your network members, you just have this one interface where they both input the data and then get to see the map and interact with the map in very deep ways. So that's what Lisa is going to show you and walk you through is the human systems dynamics map. And so you'll be looking at sort of at the map part, but just know the data is coming from sumApp. So introducing, I'll hand it over to Lisa Negstad of Negstad Consulting, who is a wonderful sense maker and social system mapper that I love to work with. So stopping sharing and handing it over to Lisa. And
hi, everybody. It's nice to be with you. I have a cough, and so I might have to mute myself in the middle of presenting if the cough decides to come up, but just know that I'm okay. So I've been doing social system mapping since 2018, and I'm excited to present to you the Human Systems Dynamics map. So I am what's called a Human Systems Dynamics professional, and it's someone who's been through that training and received certification on that. And in 2018, they're one of the early adopters of social system mapping. I did a kind of a value for value exchange with them, where I helped them create their first social system map as part of getting some registration for their training. And since then, last year, Christine and I worked on a refresh with the founders of Human Systems Dynamics, Glenda Oyoung and Royce Holliday, and we improved the map. And that's one thing that I love about social system mapping, and especially using sumApp and Kumu, is that you can always be changing the map as you're learning from it and as new ways that you might want to use it emerge for you. So it's an emergent process. It's not this static thing that takes a lot of work to change every time. So this is the refreshed map that I'll be sharing. I'm going to invite Kara to put in the HSD link in the chat here, because I want to show you how you can easily go see it. This is an open public map. I'm going to share my screen as well. I think you're seeing the HSD screen right now. And if you look at that in the top right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see the HSD network map. You can click on that and you'll get this page that comes up. And then if you scroll down to the middle, excuse me, under So What, and you click on HSD Social Systems Map, you will actually get a view of the map yourself. So that might be something that you want to do as we're going through the map. I'm going to show you several different views. So the purpose of the map, it's on here on the screen on the left-hand side. We call this the sidebar when you go into a social system map. The reason that we did the map as the Human Systems Dynamics Network is that there was just this need to stay in touch with all of those folks who have gone through this training. It's a global program, and I'll show you that in a minute, but people are from all over the world in this training. And so we wanted a place to stay in touch, a place to reconnect with old friends and colleagues, and also reconnect with those who we went through the training with. And I'll show you how that works too. To find other associates who have had this training and may have shared interests or resources that we would want. And to explore the structure of the network over time. One of the things we learn a lot in Human Systems Dynamics training is how to look at patterns. And so there's a really nice mix of being able to use social system mapping to help us see patterns. And that's the last view that I'll end with today. So, you know, in social system mapping, we talk about 3 hats that we wear to make the map as powerful as it can be. One is the technical part, right? So that is how to make it all work, how to get the data, how to make sure the data gets into the map and these views that we want to have. And then there's 2 other ones, which are visioning, which is seeing the potential for the map, looking beyond that network horizon that Christine just mentioned, visioning for how it could be useful, at least at this moment, right? And then it might emerge into other uses too. And then doing sense making. So really taking all the information we're seeing on the map and helping facilitate processes with the community and with the network that help them understand themselves better, help see potential in the network. So I want to show some ways that we use the map, and I'll be showing you some views here. I'm going to stop share for a minute so I can get to the view that I want to show. Do that. So right now you're looking at the first view of the map that comes up when you click on that link to see the social system map. And on any map, you have this sidebar, and you see that on the left. I can scroll down and see the sidebar. For this map, we have some different views that have already been programmed into Kumu in the platform. And you'll see that under this views here. And there's a directory view, models and methods, interpersonal connections. And we'll go through those, and I'll show you some ways we use the map with these views. I'll also be just giving some ways to navigate a map if you're new to social system mapping. So when you first come into this, you're seeing a directory view right now, which doesn't have any connections between the nodes. And this is a map of individuals. And you're seeing all the individuals who have selected to put themselves on the map. Some of them have uploaded their photos, some have not. But if I want to just get a good view of this directory, I'm going to go click on this. There's 3 little bars right here. That's going to take my side panel away. I'm going to go to the top right-hand corner and do a zoom fit. And that'll give you a view of the directory view. We have, I have the data for you here. We have 288 associates who are on the map. That's out of around 800 total. And there are 2,439 connections that have been made on this map, which we'll show you that view in a minute. So it just gives you an idea of the size of this network. So one of the ways that we've used this is that there might just be interest that one of us as an HSD associate has in connecting with other HSD associates of the same interest. So you'll see on the top left-hand corner of the map a filter option. And so there's several different ways we can filter this directory view, but I'm going to filter it by interest. And let's say that, and actually this is an actual way that Glenda, founder of HSD, used this map. They were offering a training, some kind of workshop that combined and looked at human systems dynamics along with diversity, equity, inclusion, and they wanted to see who were HSD professionals who were interested in that topic. And so if you click on that, you get a pretty quick list and a view of all those people who are HSD professionals who are also interested in diversity, equity, and inclusion. I would say this is a self-selected option of interest, but most people have probably who selected this, it's beyond just kind of a surface interest or their own personal interest in it. Many of us might be personally interested, but this is more also doing this in a broader way. So I'm going to unselect that. Again, it's just a simple directory view and a way to filter it if you're trying to find others who are interested in the same thing you are. Another way to use the directory view is if we've all been in cohorts with other colleagues, and it's a pretty in-depth training. So you get to know these other people quite well. And so I might want to go find my colleagues who did my cohort training with me. And so I'm just going to click on mine. You can see there's several cohorts. I was in cohort 47, and you can see that we had a smaller cohort. There's not everybody on the map. That's because you self-select to be on the map, but this gets me to 3 of my colleagues who I was in my cohort with. So just another quick way to show you how to use that directory view. I'm going to go to a different view now and show you some other ways we use the map. And I'm back to the main page that would come up when you first open the map. I'm going to scroll down, and this second view here is called Models and Methods. And this is actually the models and methods we learn, the techniques we learn when we become an HSD professional. And many of us sort of end up using, we end up using all of these, but there might be ones that we particularly feel like we use a lot, or ones that we feel like we haven't used that much and we might want a little help with. And so this is another way we use the map in our particular network. And I'm going to go and show you what this view looks like. I should have another page, but it's just blank, Christine, when it comes up. I had all these open and I'm wondering what might happen here.
Yeah, I think somehow they unloaded or they didn't finish loading. Anyway, there's, yeah.
Are you seeing a models and methods view right now?
Yeah, it hasn't finished.
Okay.
Loading, so it's
okay.
Looks like
they were all loaded before, so that is unfortunate, but hopefully this won't take too long to do.
The reason Lisa is going from tab to tab is because there's enough data in her map that it takes a while to load, and we didn't want to make you have to sit and wait for it. I'm wondering though if having all those many views is making your browser not happy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So maybe I should just close out of the views.
Yeah, and let's just,
I should do that.
Yeah, and we can just chat as
Okay.
these are loading if it takes too long.
Yeah. Okay, I'm closing out of those. I'm going to close out of Slack, closing out of HSD, just to give me some space here.
Yep.
That might help.
Yep.
All right. Let me try to reload the map here. It looks like it's working a little quicker.
And this interface looks a tiny bit different than it was because now Lisa's in sumApp. You can tell because there's that blue bar across the top. So this is where she would actually be inputting data in her profile or under her connections, and then just be able to go to the map as a member. So it's a member's view of the map. Go ahead, Lisa. Sorry. Oh, it's still loading.
I am. It's just going to take a minute here.
Yeah.
So I've clicked on the models and methods view. Okay. Yeah, it's closing out. It's going to happen. I'm just going to even click out of one more thing here. Okay, so I'm going to zoom fit, which I'm going up to the top right hand corner here. So hopefully it'll be more in the middle of your screen. The models and methods, we actually are calling these offers and asks around the models and methods that we learn through this program, through this Human Systems Dynamics program. And I'm wondering how able, I'm going to just zoom in a little bit so you can see that the models and methods are they're captured by these rectangle boxes. And okay, here's one cool thing that just happens with Kumu, right? As soon as I move my cursor over, it'll highlight on one thing. I don't really want that to happen right now, so I'm moving it back over to the side here. But let's say I am a professional and I'm really realizing that the conflict circles, I would love to know more about how to use those. They were introduced to me in the training, but I'm realizing that my clients, you know, could really benefit from that. And so I want to see here who really is offering, like who's used this in their work as an HSD professional. And I can click on that. I can highlight conflict circles and I can go over to this focus button and it'll focus in on, for me, on those who have asked for more help with this, which might be myself. I don't remember if I put that in when I did that. But I'm especially looking at for the people who offered help in conflict circles, because I might reach out to them to find out how they're using it and what suggestions they have and what examples they have of using this method.
And how would you,
And
I'm sorry, am I leading? Go ahead.
so one of the things that I had preloaded is that you can do offer only, but you have to do it before you come into this view. It doesn't work if I just click on this. So
Lisa,
I'm gonna,
how would they know which is an offer? And like everyone's connected to that. How are they going to know that who's asking?
right.
For
So
help?
the offers
Okay,
are the
sorry.
solid line and the asks are the dotted line. And you can see that in the bottom left-hand legend corner. And there's even an opportunity to, and I'm going to just try to do it on this one, to filter for just the offers only. And the way you would do that is you click on the models and methods. This is all the stuff that I had preloaded that I was hoping I wouldn't have to go through all the steps, but I'm just gonna have that work through it here. Do you see this toggle bar up here at the top? I'm gonna click on offer only. Click on these three dots. And then if I go to, no wait, this is, I'm sorry, I did that the opposite way. I'm gonna redo that. If I take off ask only, is it going okay, Christine, or is it taking a long time for you to see it?
No, it's not so bad.
Okay. I'm looking for the conflict circles, and I'm going to highlight that and focus that, and that'll just show me the offers. And those are the folks I'm going to focus on. And then I even see in here, like, I know a few of these people. So those would be the first people I'd reach out to and ask how they would use conflict circles. So this is a kind of a dive into the models and methods view and one way that we would use the map. Please do ask questions. Yeah, go ahead, Christine.
So for those of you who are new to this, the offer for human systems dynamics, the models and methods were relevant things to have as offers and asks, but in a different context, it might be any other kind. It might be that you have, say, you know, garage space that people can use to store their gardening equipment, or it can be the offers and asks can be anything that it feels like the community would like to be able to share with one another to help strengthen the overall goals of the network. So offers and asks can be whatever is appropriate in your context. This is the only context where HSD models and methods would be relevant because of the community itself. But offers and asks are used in a lot of maps. This offer and ask cluster view is used in a lot of maps, but the content of the rectangles is going to be customized to your context.
That's really great, Christine. I'm thinking about another network I'm in, and it's around the kind of strategies they're doing. And then, yeah, it's so open. So for us in HSD, this is what's helpful, but yeah, it's going to be really customizable to what your network needs.
And you could even have sorry, one more. Well, you could have more
Yeah.
than one offers and asks view too. So you might have one category of things that are would be good to be exchanges. And you might have another category of exchanges, and you could gather the data in both contexts and make two different views of offers and asks if you had that situation. So it's not like there's one offers and asks view and you have to decide what goes into it. It's very open. This is just one way of handling the data.
And as you're developing your map, these views are something that you think about, you know, what do we want to start with? I don't think we did the asks and offers the first round of the map. I'm not remembering exactly, but I think we didn't actually do it that way in the first round of the map. And we realized, oh no, it would actually be really helpful to know this, like who feels kind of really skilled in doing this model or method and who would like to know more. And so we could add it later. And so then let me just show you this third view and what we use that for. And that's the actual connections and how well people know each other. So I'm going to click on that interpersonal connections. It's going to take a little while to load here. I'm going to take the side panel away and center this. And you can see it's a pretty big map and network. So when I center it, it's small. But let's say that, I mean, first of all, this just gives you a good overview of the network, right? Of who's connected, who are those nodes that have the more connections, the real hubs of the network, and then it also shows you the outliers. And this could be, they're not that connected with those people who are on the map, if you see the people around the outside, or it could mean that they haven't actually gone in and put the connections in their map. But the one way we'd use this map is, let's say that I'm in the UK and I'd like to find out who else is an HSD professional who's selected to be on the map. As you can tell, we have about a third of the people that have potential to be on the map that are on the map. So we always have to kind of remember that too, of who's, you know, what's our percentage rate of getting people to join the map and doing that. And then, but I wanted to see who else is in the United Kingdom. And I can take a look here and see who else there is. But then it also might be interesting to find out who's kind of a key person, like Griffiths is a key person there. So I maybe start with him because he's pretty connected to almost everybody else in the United Kingdom. That's just another way we might use that. And the connections. Actually, while I'm here, maybe I should show the strength of connections. I just went back actually. Christine, do you think I should show that?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm clicking on the bottom right-hand corner and you'll see there's different levels of connection. And these are anywhere from, I've met this person, which is not a very strong connection, right? But there's some, to I've collaborated with this person and that's in the past year. So I'm gonna click on that one. And it's gonna show on the map those who are actually collaborating in this past year on work, on joint work. And that actually is interesting to see how much collaboration there is. There's a lot of good evaluation data of collaboration, right? For the HSD network professionals. But this is a really neat part of social system mapping too, is to be able to map these kinds of connections. Christine, is there anything else you want to say about this view before I go to final one and have some time for questions?
No, thanks.
Okay. I'm going to show you just this final view because one of the things that we do talk a lot about in the HSD world is looking at patterns, and this view here called the bird's eye view is what it is describing, taking a bird's eye view of the whole network. And so it's showing the connections, and it's showing, trying to find that little 3 dots to move that aside here. Let's do it. It's there. So there's a feature called Showcase, which you see up here at the top. which means that you can select something, like let's select an interest. Actually, I'm going to do sector. I'm going to select philanthropy sector to see how many people work in that sector who are part of this network. And when I select on that, it's not filtering out the rest, it's actually graying out the rest of the network. So you're still able to get a bird's eye view and see how many are in philanthropy compared to the rest of the network. And it starts to show the patterns that exist as well in the network related to whatever data you're wanting to track in your network. So that's one of the things that was interesting to us as HST professionals is the different kinds of networks, different kinds of sectors that people are involved in. And so that was showing, but you could also do like, let's look at philanthropy and nonprofit together and look at it in the context of the whole network. So you're seeing the rest of it grayed out, and you're seeing how much of this, what the connections look like when you select those two sectors, philanthropy and nonprofit.
Lisa, I just want to jump in and tell a little brief
Great
example of one way. So, and Jasmine, since you are familiar with ReAmp and I think their social system app, or at least the concept that they have one, excuse me, they, in ReAmp, they have a high level goal, and they did a systemic analysis of the field, and their goal being to reduce carbon emissions. And I'm not thinking of it as fully as it is at the moment, so they have four major, after their systemic analysis, they came up with four major strategies to reach that goal by 2050. And so we asked the network members which of the four strategies they were actively working on. And then we have this bird's eye view where we can see what we're looking at is the deeper structures of the network. So we're not just looking at who's in the center and who's on the periphery and who's collaborating with who in in the absence of the things that they're trying to accomplish. We're looking at that relative to either what they bring to the network or their goals in the network. And what we found was of those four strategies, there were two strategies that they felt through the systemic analysis, the whole network had decided two of these strategies were really high leverage strategies. These were the really crucial strategies to focus on. And the other two were just important strategies. But when you do this, where you look with the showcase view, you could see that the two important ones, but not most crucial ones, the network, the people in the network were well connected. There were hardly any disconnected peripheral people who weren't working or collaborating with somebody who was also working on that goal. But when you got to the two most crucial goals, especially one of them was really dense, really sparse. There weren't that many people in the network working on that particular goal, and they weren't very well connected. There were a lot fewer connections. And so if they say, well, this is one of our most crucial strategies for reaching this goal, and our network is not as well developed around this particular strategy, that gives us something to really work with, to say, well, how can we bring more support to the people who are working on that goal? How can we get them more interconnected? How can we, redirect funds? And how can we make them stronger? But they would not have been able to see that really in any other way without actually having this sort of structural analysis of what's actually going on in the network. And so this bird's eye view, maybe for an individual, doesn't help them, navigate the network a whole lot as much as other views do, but it helps understand what's going on in the network and think about the deeper structures of the network in a way that there really isn't another tool that will allow you to do that. So that's what the bird's eye view is trying to get at.
That's a great example. Thank you, Christine. I'm actually going to stop here, and I can pop the map back up if you have a question related to it, but I think I'll stop and take questions now and see if you have questions about the map.
observations or
Insight.
insights, concerns?
I have one myself, I suppose, if I can ask one too. When you were showing some of those views, there were a couple of people on the periphery in the networks when we're taking the bird's eye view. Do you do anything as a group to welcome those people more inclusively in, or is there usually kind of a cause outside of people not answering their connection questions that, you know, usually you're being able to see that's why these people are on the outside and then following them in?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's kind of two main answers to that, and Christine jump in too. But one is that's the first layer there is just to see if they've done their connections, and that points to the importance of how do you introduce this to your network and keep it alive, right? How do you keep it in use and alive? Because and so that people keep going in and updating their connections, because as soon as somebody else joins the map, then anyone who's been on the map needs to go and refresh their connections to that person. And so some of the things we're doing in HSD is that they have regular quarterly meetings with the community. And so Christine and I might present during that time, or we remind people. And then monthly, when they send out their newsletter, they're actually sending out a link to the map and asking people to update. So that's an important thing to think about if you're going to start doing this kind of mapping, is how to keep embedding it as much as possible into the way you use different ways you use it in your network, so it stays. You know, the more people who use it and the more people who keep it updated, the more useful it is. But then, yeah, then there is the other layer of this, is that if you're seeing that, then asking those questions about connection and what's happening there, and it might be reaching out. Like, this is a very dispersed network, it's global. There's not an actual kind of common purpose of what people are doing together in a network that you might have in other networks. But for this one, it could be interesting if you're part of the HSD Institute, right? You're on the board of directors, it's a nonprofit organization. It might be interesting for you to reach out. Like, you might want to do a survey of the people who are in that, more in the outer and are not connected, and what more would they want from a network? What would be useful to them to stay in touch with their colleagues? And that's going to again be to the purpose of whatever the purpose of the actual network is. But great questions.
Yeah, you're seeing the chat. There's Faith. Do you want to say your question out loud? Would you like me to read it?
Sure. I mean, my question is, how did you convince people who aren't really, you know, maybe their work isn't really tech focused at all. They don't use a lot of technology and maybe skeptical of yet another tool. Did you find a lot of that in your attempts to build this network? How did you know, what do you do with those people who are probably important, you know, but are intimidated by this tool?
Yeah,
that's a great question too. I'm going to give an answer, but I think Christine has some ideas about this too. And this is actually from my experience more. I know the network participants better, and it's smaller of this other one I work on, and it's the same. And many of them are not tech savvy, and they're in the different countries of the lower Mekong region. And what it's really taken there is like an offering of help, right? But also, I would say this is where sumApp is great, because sumApp gives you one link that you can put in an email to somebody, and then it has a really clear survey. So it's very streamlined and easy for people to put their information in. When you're starting to do this process with the network, having some people who are part of a group with you to think through about what you want to learn about the network, and, you know, doing it in a participatory way, having a group that's willing to pilot it with you and see where those places are that people get frustrated or don't really understand how it works, can help you design that. But that is one of the whole reasons that sumApp exists, and that we found that by sending this one, people having their unique link and just sending clear email, and then the reminders, there wasn't that much tech barrier, because it's just like filling out a survey on they don't have to know anything about how the map, the technical map stuff is. So Christina, I wonder, I mean, it does take repetitive offers. And once people start seeing that others are on the map and it's really cool, and then they're not on it yet, that also like motivates if you've got some early adopters that are willing to do it.
I'm
Other
wondering,
ideas.
is there a way for people to connect to things that they've already invested time in, like, let's say a LinkedIn profile, you know, or a portfolio, or
you can put links in your survey to, I mean, you can ask them for links to their LinkedIn or to their website. So there's that. There's no way to pull the data from those external sources into sumApp. But a couple other so one of the reasons we embedded the map into sumApp was so that people could see the purpose of this data, why we're gathering this data and how it's being used, and they could see already, just being able to see who's on the map and who's connected to who, as a sort of feedback loop that makes it interesting and makes them want to be part of it. So that's one piece. But especially like with the Lower Mekong network that Lisa and I've been working on for quite a while, so there's the repetition of the invitation to be on the map. But another thing that is getting clearer and clearer is there also needs to be a repetition of using the map and making sense with the map and accessing the map in community, so that people, so like at first people were like, every map just about every map I've ever done, at first people are sort of like, whatever, so what, it's not like so what, who cares? But over time, as they start to see how it actually can help them as individuals and can help the network overall get stronger, then they start to see more value in it. And there's, so now they're sort of like, where's the link? I need to share this with so-and-so. And like they're sort of becoming proactive about the use of the map, but it takes time and patience. And that's been a thing that I've been learning in this, especially with that particular map, is, it actually is catching on, but it's aside from the initial, there's this big initial bling thing, like, oh, that's great and fun, but without that ongoing actually using it for what it's meant to be used for, it loses its energy. So
right, so there might be a sort of inflection point at which maybe a critical mass starts to build quickly at one point, like given the first use case of maybe, I benefited from this map by doing this.
Yeah.
And other people saying, okay, or you helping the drive, okay, would you like to do that as well, or something?
Yeah. Yeah. And it looks like Jim has a comment too in your,
Yeah, I was thinking this doesn't necessarily fit with your situation, Faith, but in places where you've got like an event and you use the survey as a registration for the event, immediately you have 100% participation. Maybe not in putting all the links in, but everybody's on the map and you've got a starting point. So it might be in certain situations where you're growing a map organically that you actually have an event. Oh, we're going to do, our quarterly summit or whatever. So it's just a thought, but it's been interesting. One of the maps I created for Liberating Structures Community of Practice, it was a global event, and within 2 weeks we registered. We had 300 people that showed up and 300 people on the map, like in 2 weeks. And it was like, amazing compared to other maps where you're like pulling teeth. So anyway.
yeah.
Well, kind of related to that, do you find yourself, or is it a practice that, let's say you want to get somebody on the map, but they're just like, they don't touch computers or something. Would you do it on their behalf?
With their permission and with their input, yeah.
Okay, so you can do that.
Yeah, there's one of our mappers lives in the UK, and there's a network of 4 different networks that it's a network of networks. One is an immigrant network. One is, well, anyway, they're all situations where a large proportion of the population isn't tech savvy or doesn't have access to technology. And they actually have staff of the nonprofit either call or meet with the people and interview them and input it for them. So that's a higher lift, but it is, you can, and then we have networks where, like there's 3 people that, somebody checks in with periodically and asks them who they've started collaborating with, et cetera. So yeah, you can do it in a mix, and that's appropriate to, with their permission, obviously, to input it for them. Yeah. In fact, that same guy just told, well, this is a different topic. Never mind. I'm going in the wrong tangent.
Well, actually, something you mentioned was kind of interesting to me is, let's say a map and Jim had a map, and then we wanted to connect them because we saw like, some sort of mutual benefit in having, and some people might belong to both maps.
Yep.
Right. Does that integration work yet? Or is there a feature for that?
Yeah. So not in terms of gathering the data, because each map in sumApp is a separate project because of all the permissions, and just the different contexts would have different questions. So technically that's fairly complex, and we haven't gone there yet. But we recently made it so that the data can be exported into Kumu and into another graph visualization tool called Graph Commons. And in Graph Commons, if you have overlapping, if Jim Best is in a map, in 3 different maps, there's a way that you can find all 3 maps that he's in, so that sort of generates that. So you'd have to know what you're doing, and you'd be a little bit fussy, but you could actually build that overlap into a Graph Commons map. And so, yeah. No one's done that yet that I'm aware of. So, and Drew, the guy in the UK, would probably be the first one to do that. But so I keep an eye on what he's up to. But I know that, I know the technology well enough to know that that's possible, but don't have experience with it yet. Yeah. Are there anyone else? If no one else has a question, I'm thinking, Faith, maybe just given that it's in your head, would you like to say a little bit more about your situation and what what feels to you like, the real should we or shouldn't we questions that you're exploring, or just the context we could help you think about a little more if you're interested in doing
that? Well, I'm working with, to be honest, I actually don't know yet if this is an appropriate platform for what I'm trying to do. Is I'm working with a group of, we call ourselves conscious creators, but in more specifically, it's a group of artists and design architects who work with land healing and amongst other things. So everyone has their own sort of, they're almost like consultants, but they don't do, everything's very log, basically. It's kind of just networking in the very social way and sort of as it comes. And I'm wondering if there's a way to, for me, I'm saying, is there a way to some structure around that and actually see more than just, kind of bumping into each other and saying, oh, yes, we'd like to collaborate. We'd like to co-create on this particular thing. And there's institutions and there's individuals, and then there's philanthropies involved. So I'm kind of understanding that ecosystem. And, each group kind of offers its own inflows. And just wondering how, I'm just exploring, whether or not something like this would help. Who would it help? What the barriers would be and how big of it is that. So it's not a very specific thing like, oh, a registration for an event, but that it could be that, it could start smaller than that.
So I'm thinking, if any of the other people here in the room, just if there's any questions that dawn on you that would be good, like that would help Faith trigger just some thinking about, like what to help her just clarify her thinking. Bye, Brian. Glad to see you. Oh, you were raising your hand. I thought you were saying goodbye. Yeah, so Faith, just this is in an HSD spirit where we just generate a bunch of questions that aren't to necessarily, we're not asking you to answer them, and we're not asking you to engage any of them, but there's just like a list of questions that might trigger some thinking and that
Sure.
might help you. So I was just thinking, let's open it up and see if, so we're not going to have a discussion about it, the questions. We're going to just say the questions into the space and let the next person say theirs. How's that? Does that work for you, Faith?
Oh, yes.
Okay, Brian, you had one? You're muted. Muted.
Okay. I thought if I pressed my space bar, it would unmute me, but it didn't. Okay. I was just thinking about what Faith was saying, and that from my perspective, working with the California Donut Economic Coalition, and my personal thinking is that I want to have connections with artistic thinking, okay, because I think that's an important aspect. In addition to the idea of systems thinking and design thinking, I think we also need to start thinking more broadly, especially in terms of innovation, about artistic thinking. So if she has a map or an organization someplace, and I can get to that and find things, I can think that would be very helpful. The other thing I wanted to mention is both Faith and I recently participated with Boundarless on platform design, which I think has some applicability here as well. And I don't know how much connection there already is. I don't know if you guys know about platform design. I don't know how much platform design knows about social systems mapping. But it seems to me there's something developed here. And I'll leave it at that for now.
Great, thanks. Anyone else have anything to toss out for Faith in our last minute?
Joe put a question into the chat as well for
Oh.
Faith.
So the question, Joe, do you want to just say it out loud, Joe, into this space?
Yeah, I'm curious, Faith, like when you design for these, how are the conversations happening? That's the second question. But like to start off, what are the different ways members actually find themselves with each other? How do they find their work and things like that?
Well, that's exactly kind of the problem I want to solve, because it seems like very just informal. It's word of mouth, really. Yeah, word of mouth, and oh, I thought of this person, and we're working on this, and there's one central founder, and it's kind of hub and spoke from there, and then there's sub networks because people invite the people they know and the people that they've worked with.
Mm-hmm.
But between those parts of the ecosystem, it's like it has to go through the founder a little bit to get to someone else.
Yeah.
So the way they find each other is just very informal, and I'm wondering if there's more power in kind of connecting those, if they can self-organize a little bit.
Yeah. I'm going to stop us right here. It's top of the hour. So for those of you who need to jump off, so we're going to do our goodbye ritual. And then if you still have a few minutes or want to stick around for the whole half hour, doesn't matter how long you stick around for, but after the goodbye, just stay on. And those of us who can remain will stay. But so just because some of us have to leave at the top of the hour. So our goodbye ritual is for all of us to unmute, and I will count down. And when I get from 3 to 1, and when I get to 1, I'll give each other our blessings, our greetings, our love for the day, so that we can part with warm feelings. And then stick around after that if you want to. But let's say goodbye to those who need to jump off, so they don't have to just sneak out the door quietly with no recognition. So if you can unmute your mics, if you're willing to do this. So I'm 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye. Thank you,
so much,
Lisa.
everybody.
Great
Feel
day.
blessed with
Okay.
everybody's intelligence. Thank you.
Bye-bye.